empty. A lot of times I'm just connecting, again, I'm connecting melodically between melody notes. I mean, usually out of scales based on the harmony, sometimes arpeggios. One of the classic, one of the still always useful ideas is the thing of upper and lower neighbors over chordal tones, meaning a note above and below the note that you're going to end up. And again, you can do that on, try to target like the arpeggio tones. And you're combining that with scales. Of arpeggios and scales, and also then shooting for these extensions that we know what they sound like from getting used to hearing 11ths and sharp 11ths and sharp 5ths and stuff. And a lot of it is just a compilation of a bunch of licks you've heard that you get used to digesting and putting together in different ways too. You know, it's really building a vocabulary from things that you've heard and things that you like and you remember. You know this type of thing. That's how Joe Pass might use that type of idea. Django Reinhardt might use it like a little slightly different phrasing. Mozart might use it like this. It's the same device though. It's just moving. It's using knowing where the arpeggio tones are and then playing notes above and below them and connecting them somehow. Okay. I try to play over the chords. Of course, from my background, I like hearing harmony. I like hearing harmony moving. And you know, when I first started playing, I was playing tunes that had C and G7 in, and eventually I figured out I could play a lick over the G7th, and then led it somehow back to the C. And as you get more sophisticated in your harmony, you find ways to bring out more chords. But I like to think of the chords. And years later, I learned that you can play the same scale over a bunch of different chords, like, again, all the things you are. All 5 of those chords are still based on the A-flat scale. So they say, well, you can just play A-flat over all those chords. Well, if you do that, it still sounds like A-flat to me. It doesn't sound like the chords are going by. So I like to really know where the harmony is and be able to emphasize those thirds and sevenths and extensions. And then knowing that it's based on A-flat, you can always resort to that too. That makes sense? So yeah, and that's partially a matter of personal taste, but I think more of the chords as I'm playing. I think of the chords and I think of the melody. And I try to keep the melody in my head all the time, even when I'm improvising. I know where it is. I have a handful of private students, and
all advanced, or is it?
All levels, actually. I've got some more advanced. I've got some fairly beginners. I don't know. I try to, like I said, I try to give them things that they can use and ideas that they can continue using. It's every individual is a different personal case, so I don't really have one size fits all plan, really. I have a few key things I always like to emphasize, but the main, and I try to do a lot of the things that we've talked about today. Being able to hear what you're playing and play what you hear, and develop some good habits on the guitar, and be able to hear the harmony. And other than that, there's a lot of technical things I like to work on too. That, you know. First of all, my right-hand technique is basically all based on all down-up, alternate picking. I like to keep that pretty much on the beat, meaning that your quarter notes are going to be downstrokes, your upbeats are going to be upstrokes. So, and I like to play with a free wrist. I don't anchor it on the bridge. I don't anchor my fingers on the pick guard. I took my pick guard off to avoid the temptation, but I basically do my technique on that and try to keep it as free as possible. Now, there's any number of technical things you can use to practice that. Of course, you can practice scales and arpeggios and tunes and Paganini and Bach violin pieces that have 1,000,016th notes in them, which will build up your technique. And there's one very simple exercise, actually, that Joe DiOrio showed me years ago that still is a good warm-up for strictly physical things for your right hand. Is just down, up, picking like down on the first string and up on the second string. That's it. And the reason that's good is because doing that up pick on the second string, you have to come back and you have to have the accuracy to hit that second string and strong enough to make it sound even. If you just do down, up on one string, that's very easy. You're just going back and forth, which is also a start. But just by going back to that second string, it'll strengthen your upstroke a little bit and build a little more accuracy. And if you can do that with a free wrist and some control. You do that for 5 minutes before you start playing, you'll find your right hand will be a lot stronger. You can also do alternate across the string. So that's one strictly physical thing, that's a simple thing. Other than that, I like to keep, like I said, down, up. If you're playing a combination of quarter and eighth notes, again, I like the quarter notes on the downbeat to be a downstroke and when they're on the upbeat. So I like those eighth notes because they're on the upbeat, they're upstrokes. It helps your time feel a little bit. Some people like to use more consecutive downstrokes across the strings or vice versa, and I like to use those only for phrasing. If I want like but I still like to have as a foundation that just down, up. I find it to be more solid rhythmically. Yes?
When you playing single notes with the pick,
yeah.
You play the pick, the pick angle like perpendicular, or is it at an angle?
It's maybe a 10-degree angle slightly. Pretty perpendicular, but I think I do angle it slightly. Yeah, and and again, for your right hand, also just technical thing. I think developing a good measured tremolo is a good right hand exercise too. You know, I mean, with a metronome, eighth notes, triplet. If that's right, relaxed enough, you should be able to do that for hours without getting tired. So it's, if you're tightening up, it'll start to stiffen up and get out of time. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that is something I think is very important. You know, for years when I first started playing, a lot of my favorite players I'd listen to over and over again and try to absorb some of the feel and think I was getting their ideas down. But when I actually got around to sitting down and writing them out, and seeing the rhythm as forcing myself to write them out, and doing it yourself will help you digest the ideas a lot better than just buying a book of someone else's transcriptions where you're just reading and trying to, the act of sitting down and figure out the rhythms, figure out the notes, and realize, oh yeah, he's going from a ninth to a flat 9 there. Well, if he does it there, then I can do it on this chord too. So that's definitely a very important part of building up both your ear and your vocabulary of ideas. Yeah.